Now he continues. He says, Misharogel b'mitzvazu b'tmidus. This is very important. We spoke about a person who's a Bal Chesed and a person who's Osa Chesed. People do acts of kindness. You give charity. What is a Bal Chesed? A person, his persona is Chesed, meaning he's always looking and is always involved in some level of Chesed. Always. There's certain people, they said, we give charity. You realize this opportunity to provide for others at many levels. Does not mean not necessarily money out of your pocket. Advising a fellow, saying a good word to a fellow Jew, or even to a non-Jew, doesn't make a difference. Chesed is chesed. Of course, the ultimate chesed is, as we say, charity begins at home. Family first. So if a person does chesed, and he's rogil v'chesed, meaning he's accustomed to be involved in chesed. It's not something sporadically he does chesed. He's involved. That means it's in your gut. Now, I told over a story a number of months ago about the Chofetz Chaim, that there was a Jew who lived in London in the early 20s of the 20th century, and he was a successful businessman, very upright Jew, and the majority of the day he was involved in helping other people. The majority of the day, his wife says, you're running a business. Even though you were earning sufficiently, but if you're a businessman, your main time should be spent in the business, not doing chesed. And every moment of the day, there's something else that you're involved in. I think it's the wrong thing. Of course, it's important to chesed, but at this level. So her husband says to her, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to consult with the Chofetz Chaim. I'm going to travel from London to Radin, where the Chofetz Chaim is, and I'll ask him the question. If he says, you're right, I'll tone down my chesed. If not, I will continue the way I'm doing it. Travels from London to Radin. I'm not sure how long was the trip in those years. It's not that far to Poland. Comes to the Chofetz Chaim, and it was known that the Chofetz Chaim was divinely inspired. The Chofetz Chaim welcomes him into his home, and immediately he quotes a verse in Psalms, where David himself says in the Psalm about God is my shepherd. I'm in the valley of death. He watches over me. And he concludes that chesed should pursue him his whole life. So the Chofetz Chaim says, we speak about a pursuer. Person is pursue means it's unrelenting. Chesed should be unrelenting in my life. He says, what does that mean? It means the ultimate is that a person, Hashem should send a person opportunities that unrelentingly he wants you to do chesed. And that's the ultimate blessing, to be in a position where you always need to do chesed and you can't do chesed. So the Chofetz Chaim, after he gives him this explanation of this verse in Tehillim, in Psalms, so Chofetz Chaim says, why did you come? You traveled all the way from London here. What did you come for? He says, I have my answer. And he asked him for a blessing. He left, took leave of the Chofetz Chaim, went back to London. He had his answer. You understand? If a person goes and he's running a very exceptional business where it needs his attention continuously, and somebody says, if you buy this lottery ticket, it's for sure a win. For sure a win. And it's multiples what you make in many years. Person says, but I can't leave the office to cash in on it. I can't leave it. Are you out of your mind? This is your ticket to success. What do you mean you can't take out time from your business? But you're guaranteed it's a win. It's a win-win, multiples. What do you mean you can't take out time? Well, you realize I'm running a business. Well, why do you run a business? For what reason? To make money, to succeed, to have means to be able to provide. But if this action will provide everything, beyond even this existence. What do you mean you can't take out time? That's exactly what we're speaking about over here. What is the ramifications of doing chesed? Untold ramifications. We always say, years ago I used to say to people, you take a stone and throw it into the water. What happens? They ripples. We call it the ripple effect. Do we understand where those ripples are going to end? It activates all kinds of forces, all kinds of energies. And those energies are unending. And it provides other energies, and you do more. And you keep throwing stones in that water, and the ripples become even more profound. And greater ripples come. And it's even more far-reaching. That's exactly what we're talking about over here. So he quotes the Talmud. The Gemara tells us that whoever is accustomed to chesed, doesn't say whoever does chesed. The word ragil means regilus means you're accustomed. You do it naturally, on an ongoing basis. You will merit to have children who are wise. Balei chochma, mean people will come and consult with them because they're wise. Balei osher, they will merit to become wealthy. Balei agoda, they'll be able to lecture on agadic concepts, and people will come and be attracted to them. And Rabbi Shua says, it's the Talmud of Bava Basra, what if a person has no children? Doing acts of loving kindness, that's a basis to merit to have children. The Chafetz Chaim says that people, they're looking for all kinds of skulos, all kinds of activities to merit to have certain blessing in their life. Chafetz Chaim says, you don't have to travel to the end of the world and pray at this grave or that grave. If you do things which are prescribed by the Torah, that itself generates the greatest blessing. The Torah itself generates the greatest blessing. And here we're saying, Rabbi Yeshua says that a person who's rogil b'chesed, lasos tzedakah, tzedakah doesn't mean every day you put the dollar in the charity box. Doesn't mean that. Rogil b'tzedakah. Rogil, you're accustomed to do acts of kindness, whether it's money, whether it's favors, whether it's consideration for others, whatever it may be. You merit to have bali chochma, bali osher, bali agoda. And it cites a pasuk. How do we know that he'll merit to have children who have that special level of wisdom? It's a pasuk. It says, "Rodif tzedakah v'chesed yimtzo chayim." If you pursue tzedakah and chesed, you will find life. What's life? Eitz chayim machzikim bo. The Torah is the tree of life. Now it's interesting. The Chafetz Chaim says in another location, if a person is caught in a flood and is being swept down and is go over the falls, and as he's being moving at a very fast pace with the current, he realizes unless he grabs onto something to save his life is gone. So what does he do? As he passes by a tree, there's a branch extending from the tree, and he grabs onto the branch. But you realize, as long as you hold on to that branch, you're not secured enough because the current of the water keeps pushing you. Eventually, your strength is going to ebb, and you're not going to be able to hold on to that branch, and you're going to be washed down the river, downstream. So what do you have to do? You grab onto that branch, and you inch yourself closer to the trunk. And when you get to the trunk, you take your legs and your arms, and you wrap it around the tree. So as much as the water pounds you, you're secure on the tree because you're holding on to the tree. You're no longer holding on to the branch. So Shlomo Melech says, Eitz chaim hi lamachzikim bo. The Torah is a tree of life if you hold on to it. It's not you holding on to the tip of a branch or holding on to a branch. You're actually embracing the Torah in entirety. When you go and embrace the Torah in entirety, your legs are around it, your arms, you're embracing it. That's Eitz chaim hi. That's a tree of life. Because since you're fully connected at every level, could you imagine, we know the brain, even though we have no neurologist on here, but Norman has this background of medicine. The brain has certain different parts to it. There's the memory, there's the processing, there's the emotion. Brain has different parts. It's important that all parts actually operate. If one part of the brain doesn't operate, the brain is malfunctioning. If you want to function properly and appropriately as a Jew, a spiritual being, to have the senses at every level, you have to embrace the Torah in entirety. Well, my favorite mitzvah is, I eat latkes on Hanukkah, and I said shalach manos and eat hamantashen on Purim. Understand? At best, it'll get you extra calories and maybe bring you other problems. That's about it. You want to know what God wants, you embrace the Torah. And by embracing every mitzvah, do what you're supposed to do, it creates a dynamic. And that dynamic consumes you and you become imbued with it. And you have senses. And the senses go beyond human senses. You have senses of right and wrong, which most people don't. Your senses become acute. And you have a sensitivity which not. I once shared a story many years ago. We used to have a fundraiser every Pesach and Sukkot. And we raised enough money that we supported 27,000 families in Israel. That's how much money we raised within 45 minutes. And certain people came. One person gave $3 million, another person gave $1 million, 1,500,000. And within 45 minutes, there's a group of less than 20 people. We raised sometimes $9 million. And it was all direct deposit into these families' accounts in Israel, okay? So I call up a person who I know, the person we're all aware of, which I quote him anonymously, and he's a charitable person, very charitable. And I tell him exactly what we want to do. And he knows the people who are there. He knows the people who are attending this fundraiser. And respects them. And I tell him it's put food on the table for these families who cannot provide for themselves for the holiday. Does he want to come to the fundraiser? I'm not telling him what to give, how much to give, just to be there. But he understands it means to participate. He says to me, Rabbi, I want to tell you, I'm very impressed with what you're doing and what's happening. It's just not my cup of tea. You understand? It's just not my cup of tea. I'd be feeding people who don't have what to eat. How could it not be a cup of tea? You know what the answer is? To be able to have the merit to support people who are immersed and dedicated to Torah, you have to have a special merit. Be part of that group, to support and uphold that. If you don't have the merit, for some reason, it's not your cup of tea. We'll use it, it doesn't resonate with the person. My cup of tea is elsewhere. Whatever it is, he does good things, but nothing's on this level. That was his answer to me. I said, thank you. In the future, I'll call you again. Maybe you'll be interested. But he wasn't interested. Why? Didn't make any sense. The homeless guy you'll give on the street. But these are respectable, honorable, responsible people raising families as Jews. And he's not opposed to Orthodox Jews. He's not opposed to it. He says, it's just not my cup of tea. That's not first and foremost at this moment. So a person's rogil b'tzedakah, chesed. You're accustomed to doing tzedakah and chesed. You will merit people, children, who are bali chochmah. That means God will imbue them with an interest and an ability to comprehend and embrace Torah, to have wealth, to be orators, to be influential, to affect other people spiritually, to impact on the Jewish people. This is all special. These are special endowments. It's not a physical endowments. These are spiritual endowments. But you have to be rodef tzedakah chesed. You have to pursue it. Pursue it means as much as you do, you never have enough. If you can't find it, you look for it. If it doesn't come to you, you go to it. We find that Avraham Avinu, the founding patriarch of Jewish people, on the third day of his circumcision when he's 99 years old, it was the hottest day in the history of existence, and there were no wayfarers. He went out to the entrance of his tent and he was looking up and down the road. And he was pained. He couldn't find anyone. Look, you know something? I'm happy to do hospitality. They come to me, I'll host them. They don't come to me, I have a respite. And it's the third day of his circumcision. It's the most difficult day of recovery. Why? Because Avram was a rodef tzedakah v'chesed. It's not he did tzedakah v'chesed. He didn't do charity and acts of kindness. Just as a person has to breathe air to be fully functional, he had a need to do that. He was rugged because he understood the importance of that. Now, there's an expression, time is of the essence. Do you know how many needy people are out there who truly in need? So nobody could say, I've done mine. Let's say a person has 50 children and grandchildren, all family members, and he feeds 30, but not all 50. Is he going to say, I've done mine? Feeding 50 people is a lot of people to feed. But factually, until you feed all of them, they're not all fed, and they're yours. What do you mean, I've done mine? But if it's your responsibility to provide for all of them, or to do your best, you haven't done your best. So as Jews, if there's a concept of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, we have to be concerned for all Jews like we're concerned for ourselves. Of course, the priorities, who's first, who's second. But could you say, I've done mine? I sent my check into UJA, you know? And, you know, it's within the limits of my giving because, you know, when I discuss it with my wife, we still have to have money to go to the theater and to, you know, and to upgrade our car. And every once in a while, exchange the fur coat and put it into the, you know, for the winter. For the summer, we got to put it in storage, you know, cold storage, the expenses in life. And you got to pay for the upkeep of the pool. And the pool table, they have new kinds of pool tables they have now. You know, you don't even have to play pool. It goes right in the pocket by itself. That kind of pool table it has. And you can have the benefit of a sauna. You don't need to go into the sauna. You can sit and study Torah and the sauna is going. And you remain healthy without going into the sauna. Okay. We read in the Torah, the curses, God forbid, upon Jewish people, that if you do the right thing, the Torah says, all these blessings will come upon you, and you cannot escape these blessings. You know what I mean? It's not to be able to escape. It's coming on with such a rush. They're going to catch up with you. When is this? When you heed the voice of Hashem. This is a Tonvei Eliyahu. This was taught in Eliyahu Novi's Beis Medrash. He says, "In Tishma Kol Hashem Elokecha v'Telech b'Drochov," and you follow His ways, you emulate His ways. Sheheim Darkei Shemayim, Mahim Darkei Shemayim. What are the ways of God? What is emulating God is very important. Shu Rachman, God is merciful. If you're merciful. Umerachem afila Rishoyim isn't interesting. Even people who are unworthy, you should still feel for them. Umakabalosam b'tshuva shleima. Now, sometimes a person behaves in a way he doesn't deserve. Even when he wants to do tshuva, you don't want to look at him. No. He's a Jew, you accept him. You give him every opportunity to come back. It would be your own child. Would you give him an opportunity to come back? No matter how far he's gone, no matter how far he's strayed. I'll tell you a story. Rav Steinman, Zeichat Tzaddik Livrocho, who was one of the leading Torah sages, passed away not maybe 8 years ago, maybe less. And, you know, the people who are Charedim in Israel, they don't send their children, don't go to into the army. There's an exemption. There's an exemption. And he established in the Israeli army, it's called Nachal Charedi. It's a stream. Why? What's the reason why? Besides, because they're dedicated to learning. Because when you go into the army, you're exposed to many things that, regardless of your upbringing, because the intermingling of men and women and people who are not observant, and you're living in certain type of quarters, it can actually subliminally and overtly undermine your Judaism. So he created this stream, it's called Nach Haredi, that these young men will have their own dormitories. They'll have their own commanders. And they'll be provided with the amenities to be able to be in the army as fully observant Jews, not to be exposed to the negative influences of the Israeli army. Okay? But who are these boys? These boys were kids at risk. They weren't studying. They were going off the track, and they needed the army. Not only the army was the best thing for them, because they were regimented, and they were bound to a routine. They had no choice but to do the right thing. They needed a level of conditioning which they didn't have. So Steinman felt this is the way to do it. Create a separate section in the Israeli army for these kinds of boys, regardless of how observant the families are. You know what happened? There was a reaction team. People were opposed. How do you go and endorse the Israeli army for people who come from observant families? So Steinman said to them, and he heard this, he says, if God forbid your child will be a drug addict, and your child will be involved in alcoholism, and your child would roam the streets 2 a.m. and do all kinds of things which are not acceptable, would you do whatever you can and put him in a setting that will correct that behavior, even in the Israeli army? You're opposed to it because it's not your child. But if it be your child, you don't understand that's what you have to do. That was his response. With all the criticism, he did not back down, Rav Steinman. You understand? Yimarachim, even ala Rishoyim. When the Russia wants to do tshuva, the evil person wants to come back and do tshuva. You say, well, you're a no goodnik. Because of the way you behaved in the past, I don't want to look at you. If the man is sincere or you're able to assist him to come back, you do whatever. If it be your own child, you wouldn't be involved in bringing him back or doing whatever you can to bring him back. And years ago, there were people, their kids were involved in cults. They paid fortunes for people to deprogram their children, to get them back in a normal, safe place. But who ever heard of spending that kind of money? If it's your child, you'll spend that kind of money. So what is it all about? Interesting story. It's worthwhile. I recommend the book very strongly. The biography of Rav Steinman by Art Scroll was put out within the past year. Phenomenal book. I knew Rav Steinman. I knew him for 25 years. I knew him very well. But after reading this book, there was a certain part of his life which I was not aware of, because he was a very humble person and many things he did not share. But in this biography, there are things there. Tells over a story that there was this family, they couldn't get their daughter into a girls' school. They said because the classes are filled to capacity and we can't accept her. So the young girl was really qualified. We can't accept her. So Steinman asked that the head of the school should come see him. So they said to him, I have a granddaughter. Could you accept her? Rav Steinman's the leading Torah sage, one of the leading Torah sages. Could you accept my granddaughter? He says, of course, the Rosh Yeshiva's granddaughter, of course we'll accept her. He says, I don't understand. My granddaughter, despite the fact it's filled to capacity, of course you'll accept her. And this other person, his daughter, you're not accepting. Why not? Is she less than my granddaughter? She's a Jewish girl who needs a Jewish education. But you see, people have they wear these blinders. You yes, her no. Why? So you have to be mirachem, even on the Rishonim, when the Russia wants to do tshuva, or you could be involved in bringing him back. Well, he's not from our ilk. He's a different reality. What do you mean different reality? If he's a Jew, he's a Jew. You do whatever you can. And if you display your consideration and your mercy, and you do what you can for him, then that will generate unbelievable, unlimited bracha for all of us. But unfortunately, we pick and choose. You pick and choose your battles, but you don't pick and choose when it comes to Chesed. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. There's a story. If you read the history of the Jerusalem community from the mid 1800s until a certain time in the 20th century, there was a community in Yerushalayim was called Yishuv HaYashan, the old community. And then there was Yishuv HaChadash, who was the new community. And the chief rabbi of the old community, his name was Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. Very great, Torah sage, tzaddik, everything. And Shari Tzedek Hospital, the doctor who founded the hospital, his name was Dr. Wallach. He was a German Jew, a Yeki Jew, very observant, and he was like a student of Rabbi Sonnenfeld. And whatever Rabbi Sonnenfeld, when the hospital was established, it was set up based on the protocols and the bylaws as Rabbi Sonnenfeld said it should be. What was it? That the only person you realize they didn't have unlimited resources. They had limited resources, so they can only attend to so many patients. And now you have two types of people living in Yerushalayim. You have observant Jews, committed Jews, and they have Jews that are secular. Not only secular, they're almost anti-religious. This was originally, they came over, they were called maskilim. They wanted to undermine Judaism. So he said that the hospital is not available for these people who are anti-religious. They're not available, okay? And in those years, they were fighting for turf. Here you have a community in place for 75 years. This new group comes in. They want to get world recognition that they are the community of Jerusalem, to be able to fundraise many things. And they fought for turf, and there were physical battles in the streets. One of the heads of this group was a rabble-rouser, and whatever it is. And even Reb Sonnenfeld had scars on his body when they beat him. Yeah? And he used to say, that's my badge of honor. He would show the scars as that's my badge of honor. That he was hurt because of what he stood for. The head of this group, who were anti-religious, he had a stroke. He was a man in his 50s, he had a stroke. And there's a question. If he's not attended medically, the man dies, or he's going to become a vegetable. So they came to Dr. Wallach and said, you have to admit him to the hospital. If not, he's going to die. They said, you have to ask the chief rabbi. You have to ask Rabbi Sonnenfeld. Rabbi Sonnenfeld said, since it's a question of life and death, admit him, attend to whatever his needs are, and he recovers. 6 months later, there's a rally in Yerushalayim, and this person is spewing forth literally venom against Rabbi Sonnenfeld. He's a man who couldn't care less about anybody else but himself, his own community, this and that. And his assistant is standing by, and he knew the story, that the only reason why he was admitted to Shari Tzedek was because Rabbi Sonnenfeld allowed him to be admitted. So the reason why he's alive today, who's anti-religious, is so Rabbi Sonnenfeld gave the green light, he should go in. And here he's spewing venom, how this rabbi couldn't care less only about his own kind. So his assistant whispers, and he said, I want to explain you something. The reason why you admitted him to Shari Tzedek, because this rabbi you're talking, turned white. He turned white. You understand? People of that special level, as Tanvei Elio says, Eliyahu taught, Chesed and Rachmin, being merciful and kind, is even to that person, as long as there's a chance he can do tshuva, and he wants to do tshuva, and you can make a difference, you should be there to do chesed on behalf of that person. We're talking about levels of character. This is what's called sterling character. Sterling. It's something which is a rare commodity. People, the dog. You raise money, for the cats and dogs. You set up animal hospitals. Free insurance for veterinarian services. This is a great accommodation. This is charity. What about human beings? who don't have medical care, who don't have what to eat. Well, a human being could fend for himself. We got to worry about these creatures who can't fend for themselves. Nobody's saying you shouldn't have Rahman, you shouldn't have mercy on an animal if you could make a difference. But where do your priorities lie? No, the human being is the priority. The Jew is the priority. The ones closest to you is the priority. In Judaism, the priorities. That's the way the Torah. But the one who set up the scale of priorities, this is God himself. Therefore, it's not we pick and choose, and we're all, only for ourselves. It's interesting. The world does what it wants. It couldn't care about the Jew on the world scene. But the Jew, you have to care for everybody. But it's a double standard. Well, because God holds the Jew to a higher standard. So we're really following God as Jew. God holds the Jew to a high standard. We hold the Jew to a high standard. We may not support you, but you should support us. You hear such nonsense. But that's the reality of this world.